Okay, so my husband's stepdad, Darren, passed away about 5 months ago. He was on a trip with his wife, my mother-in-law, visiting their kids in West Virginia. He also had Parkinson's, and which made it really hard for him to sleep at night. So he often would get up in the middle of the night. Or while he was in West Virginia, he couldn't sleep one night, and he got in the car to drive back to their hotel, and he was hit by a drunk driver. That was in November. Something that Darren loved was photography. Often when he wasn't able to sleep in the middle of the night, he would get up and go take pictures, and specifically he would set his camera somewhere and take like a time lapse. And he was a very trusting person, so he would just go set his camera somewhere, leave it on all night, and then capture this cool time lapse of the stars at night. After he died, they sent back his laptop, his phone, and his backpack, which were in the car with him, but no one knew where his camera was. And they contacted the police department, they couldn't find it. But one of his daughters was like, oh, he probably put it up in a tree somewhere and left it. So she posted it on a Facebook group for that community in West Virginia and just asked them if anyone had found this camera. Luckily, he had set it up outside of a church to take a time lapse, and the people who are in charge of that church, they found it, they put it inside the church to keep it safe, and they were able to communicate with his daughter and get it sent back home to her. She was able to look at his last photo that he had taken, or photos. He had left his camera up all night, and he had set it up at this little graveyard, and it would take pictures periodically, and his daughter put those pictures together to create this time lapse of the sun rising and the stars moving across the sky. And at one point in the video, there's lots of like different colored lights, satellites, planes moving across the sky. And at one point there is a red light that goes straight up vertically. And so we all have been like, that was him going straight up to heaven. That one moment where there's the red line, the red dots that go up, my mother-in-law asked me to paint that scene for her so she could have a painting of it. I was able to paint, kind of collaborate with Darren for this last artwork that he created, and to paint it so she can have a physical form of it to put up in her house or whatnot. So yeah, so to tell you a little bit about my process, what I did to make my reference photo is I took several screenshots from the video and put them on top of each other, increased the saturation so I could see it better, because it was really dark, some parts of it. And I emphasized in my painting, or I wanted to emphasize the color in the sky, and then of course that red light going up. Yeah, and then I worked in acrylic for this painting, so I just used really thin layers. I would water down the colors and then layer them a lot. And I feel like through that process, it honestly was kind of similar to taking a time lapse where I would just have layers, and it started with dark and then it would get lighter and more detail. And I think that that's similar to when the sun rises. You know, you think it's light outside at first because your eyes have adjusted to how dark it is. But then as the sun actually rises, you realize how much you haven't been able to see. And so it was interesting to work through that process in my mind as I painted this. And I also feel like Darren and I collaborated, because he always, when he was editing his photos that he took, he was always focusing on color and saturation. And I definitely felt like that's what I needed to do with this painting as well. I don't paint a lot of landscapes. I don't do a lot of like night skies. I can't remember the last time I've tried to paint something like this, but it was really fun to do it in the natural painterly aesthetic that comes naturally when I paint, because that's how I feel like the photo translated to a painting really well. So yeah.